Hi everyone, for this episode of Retention Zone, I'm happy to have with me Enzo Bermond from Cleeng to talk about something that is quite a sophisticated subject in the subscription world, merchant of record, MOR. There are two things in life that even if I study deeply, I still cannot understand properly and explain to others, so that's good to have Enzo with me. And they are cricket and merchant of record. Hi Enzo, let's focus on merchant of record for the moment. I will do another episode of cricket maybe.
Sure, thanks for having me, Carlo. So merchant of record is actually not a very well-known concept, but it's actually very important for subscription businesses in particular. A merchant of record is the legal seller of the transactions. It basically acts as the intermediary between the subscribers and the subscription service. So this means that a merchant of record is responsible for the full subscription flow, including having the right checkout page, authorizing payments, retrying subscription payments through dynamic settings, calculating the right tax amount, remitting the tax amount to the right local authorities, making sure that all the data is compliant and the whole process follows local compliance rules, as well as detecting, for example, some fraudsters and managing chargebacks and disputes on behalf of subscriptions businesses, and finally providing the right reporting and analytics. The MOR, basically takes the whole liability, away from the subscription businesses and is responsible for all the operational activities and the financial liabilities linked to, again, taxes, compliance and stuff.
So, from what you said before going deeper into each part and understanding exactly, why do you need that, and why is not enough to have just a payment processor doing everything?
Good question, Carlo. And I often get this question. Look, PSPs, payment processors, are just a component of the payment infrastructure. They focus on authorizing payments, meaning bringing the money from the buyer's account to the seller's account, basically, and connecting to payment methods. But if you only use a PSP, then you're missing out on a lot of other payment activities to have a complete billing stack. So in order to be fully, let's say, compliant and be able to cover the whole payment stack, you also need to keep an eye on the tax threshold. You need to register for sales tax. You need to manage reports, analytics. You need to manage documentation. You need to make sure everything stays compliant. And so PSPs don't do that. They don't want to be liable or responsible for this, what merchant of records actually are.
So basically, I can imagine just that this is extremely more important if you're going beyond one single country. So the moment you go either global, meaning like 200 countries or more countries, this becomes kind of unmanageable unless you know how to do it, right?
Yeah, for sure. Also, payment processors, they have their let's say key markets or key countries, but usually they don't cover all countries on Earth. And so, merchant of record is able to connect to several payment processors to leverage each processor's strength, and local presence, in order to have the right connection to the local banks, propose the right payment preferences per region, etc. So, global expansion is very much enabled by merchant of record model, also meaning, being compliant with local regulations, remitting the taxes to the right local authorities, etc.
Okay, so I just because this time I'll try to understand it properly, even if I was involved in different projects where it was, but I always left it to my CFOs or other people. I had a basic understanding of it. But you mentioned different parts. Can we go a bit deep on each single those parts so I can understand, and I think hopefully also people watching can understand a bit more in detail. And I think we have a little slide just to have it's a bullet point slide. I'm not a fan of that, but in this case, it's easier to memorize, I guess.
Indeed. Well, that's because merchant record is actually not complex, so a simple slide is enough to explain it. So those are the different components of merchant record. First, payment orchestration, meaning being able to authorize payments, and connect to the right pay method. As I mentioned before, we're able to, as merchant record, connect to several payment processors and process transactions. Secondly, fraud detection and trust. So we detect, as merchant record, some potential fraudsters and different fraud patterns by doing pre-authorization checks that reduce the risk and improve the trust from the local banks and the issuers, actually, which is very important. And in general, merchant record.
So these are two aspects, but they are connected.
They are very much connected, yes. Obviously, fraud detection goes along with payment authorization, and that's why, as merchant record, usually they have a mix of static security measures like email verification, for example, and also artificial intelligence to detect more complex fraud patterns. But that's not only it, obviously. A merchant record also addresses dunnings, especially for subscription businesses, right? So
I don't know what dunning is. I mean, people. I don't think it's a very clear term for many people, maybe, especially not Anglo-Saxon.
Yeah, dunning, it's basically the settings that you have to retry payments on subscribers, because subscribers, as you're aware, Carlo, they don't have to enter their payment details again when they renew their subscription.
Yeah,
it's done automatically. But in some cases, when you try to renew a subscription automatically, it doesn't succeed for different reasons. Maybe there's not enough fund on their customer's bank account. There's a decline from the bank, or different reasons. And so you need to retry those payment requests. And so that's what we call the dunning settings. So it's basically a number of attempts over a specific period of time where you try to recover the subscribers that were not able to pay on the renewal date. And so this is very important to minimize the churn.
Yeah.
And so we have merchant records have different ways of doing it, testing different dunning settings, switching providers between one attempt to another in order to maximize the performance. But I think one of the most important components of merchant record is the tax calculation and remittance. So a merchant record would allocate the right tax rate based on the user location. And so, this tax rate would be applied on top of the total price of the user. And then the subscriber would receive its receipt with the tax applied. And as merchant record, we will collect the tax amount, and then we would file the local tax regulation and remit the tax amount to the local authorities. And any tax audits or any correspondence with the local authorities on tax is done through the merchant record or any tax report documentation.
So there is a liability there for the merchant record too.
There is obviously full liability, as the merchant record, as I mentioned, is the legal entity selling the product. So all the taxes, liability fall on the merchant record. So if there is any mistake, then it would be the merchant record who is liable and not the business.
So for the direct-to-consumer subscription business, it's a kind of protection against the liability of mistake done by others, basically, in the end.
For sure, 100%. And both for tax and also compliance, if there is any mistake done in data privacy and stuff, it's a merchant record who's responsible. And that's a big difference, again, between payment processors and merchant records. Payment processors, they don't want liability. Some of them can help you to do your taxes, but they don't want liability, where a merchant record is fully liable. And that
which means merchant record needs to have kind of a view on what happens at product level. So I introduce a new feature that has a privacy issue.
Yeah,
is there a conversation with who's doing the merchant record and the platform?
Yeah, for sure. Look, a merchant record is directly connected to all the different types of offers, new features that the business may launch, also churn analytics or the user support. At least some companies are merchant record, and they need to connect with those kind of tools to provide a full billing system. At Cleeng, as you know, we have different products. Our merchant product, which is the merchant of record, and then other products that take care of the rest. Addressing campaigns, new offers, identification, user support for chatbot and stuff.
What is chargeback?
Yeah, exactly. Last one but not least, chargebacks. So in some cases, maybe 0.5%, 1% of the cases, users would feel some chargebacks because they want to challenge the subscription being billed to them. And so
I've seen it.
You've seen it, yes. It's pretty common in some countries. And so, as merchant of record, we would dispute those chargeback requests with a dedicated team, and on behalf of our customers, businesses, trying to recover this disputed revenue. And it's pretty important because chargebacks, if they're not disputed, then become lost revenue. And if there are too many, then they cost a lot. They could lead to some penalties from Visa and MasterCard. So it's also a key
but
aspect.
Sometimes the customer is right. So in that case, you pay.
Yeah, that's why when we, the good thing about chargeback management is you review the reasons behind the chargeback request. So in some cases, if a user was wrongly charged, then obviously he gets his money back, no problem. But sometimes it comes from fraudsters that want to get their money back, while they actually use the service. So in that case, we need to dispute them.
Yeah. Okay. So I think it's a lot clearer now. And in terms of value, so I think it's almost clear why a direct-to-consumer subscription business, and it doesn't have to be streaming, no? It can be a yoga platform or whatever makes sense in the terms that, especially because the subscription being recurring, you don't have a problem once, you have it every month, every year, etc. Right? What is the real value for a subscription business? And when you think you start a small platform, at what level this kind of business should engage with the merchant of record, professional merchant of record, a solution?
Honestly, as soon as you have a few thousand subscribers, it really takes the burden out of subscriptions businesses. They don't have to worry about anything regarding payments except getting their monthly payout. And to be honest, no matter how small or big you are, it brings very clear benefits. First, you have fewer fragmented tools, so you don't need a tool for tax management. You don't need another tool for chargebacks. Basically, you could have third parties helping you on all the different points, right, that I just mentioned. But with merchant of record, it actually covers everything on your behalf and also is liable for everything. So that's very powerful. Also, it would bring to the business higher acceptance rates, meaning fewer payment failures, lower fraud exposure, meaning less operational risk, no liability on tax, I mentioned it, and usually more predictable and stable recurring revenue because you only have one partner to pay. Predictability is also very key.
So, and as you were so kind to explain all of this to me, tell me about the Cleeng solution now.
Yeah, it's very important to understand again what PSP like Adyen and Stripe do versus a merchant record like Cleeng Merchant. So Adyen and Stripe, for example, they basically handle the payment processing, again connecting to the local banks, integrating with payment methods. They're very good at this. There's no arguments against it. But a merchant record does this plus many other things. So this is what we do at Cleeng Merchant. So obviously we use payment processors to authorize payments, connect to local payment methods, but also we provide customized checkout, payment orchestration, meaning connections to different payment processors, the done settings that I mentioned before, right? The retry logic, the fraud detection tools, both static and AI powered, the reporting analytics part. So we are, we have some analytics on which we have some actionable insights that we can change also some settings based on what we see. And of course, we provide tax calculations based on user location, tax remittance to local authorities for liability, and compliance that I mentioned many times. And finally, we also handle the chargeback disputes on behalf of our D2C businesses.
Thank you for this. One last question. You mentioned it before, but I think as you were mentioning all these parts, clearly, if you have a customer service, and I know you offer one of your products is the customer service, there needs to be a very strong integration of customer service with this area of the business, correct?
For sure. Customer service could be linked to refund request, chargeback request, basically also any request. So Cleeng, we have a product called High Five, which handles all the user requests via chatbot or also via our dedicated team, which addresses nearly 100% of all the requests in a few hours.
Okay. Thank you. So I don't know if we can call this a masterclass, but I really like the way you articulated the whole thing for me and obviously for our audience, if they were patient to listen to the whole thing. Anything you want to add at the end, Enzo? And thank you for doing this, by the way.
No, I think it's very important that merchant record becomes a commonly known concept in the payment industry. And it's important that businesses understand that payment is not only about just moving money from the user account to the business account via payment processors, but it's also way more than this.
And to be honest, I'm not sure it's fully relevant, but I remember I read in the last month that Netflix had a big hiccup in Brazil for taxes. I'm not sure. Obviously, it's Netflix. So, but if even Netflix cannot understand taxes properly, imagine, right?
Yeah. To be honest, there are a few markets like Brazil which are very complex to address in terms of taxes and stuff. That's why it's very hard for businesses to do it on their own. And they would need to have maybe a tax advisors in Brazil or tax partner in Brazil. In every complex country. With a merchant of record like Cleeng, we already have the connections to those local markets. We have registered tax in those complex markets, and so we can use our tax registration, our local entities to remit the taxes on the behalf of businesses.
Okay, grazie Enzo. Have a nice holiday season. Grazie, ciao.
You too, ciao.